All right, page 702. The last thing we talked about was Ebola and Marburg. Now we're going to talk about Flaviviridae family. Oh. All right, so Flaviviridae. 3-line sound. This includes Japanese encephalitis virus, dengue virus, yellow fever virus, St. Louis encephalitis virus, Zika virus, and the forest disease. And then if you go down all these other ones, West Nile. So then if you go to page 703 and go to the next paragraph, 2 lines down, classic dengue fever and dengue hemorrhagic fever. Go down a couple more lines. Most of these deaths occur in children younger than 15. The virus is transmitted by Aedes mosquitoes, including the Aedes aegypti and Aedes albopicus. Next paragraph. Dengue fever, go down a little bit more. Patients with dengue fever develop fever, headache, myalgia, and bone pain. Go down to the next paragraph. Yellow fever is caused by the yellow fever virus. Go down to the next paragraph. Patients bitten by mosquitoes carrying yellow fever can develop asymptomatic or acute infection involving fever, myalgia, backache, headache, anorexia, nausea, vomiting. Go down a couple more lines. Patient develops jaundice, hence the name yellow fever, and bleeding from the mouth, eyes, nose, stomach, and other areas. Go, not the next paragraph, but the next, in the next section. In the United States, the most common flavivirus infection is SLE, which is St. Louis encephalitis. An average of 193 cases have been reported annually in the United States. Endemics are more likely to occur in the Midwest or the Southeast, but cases have been reported in all of the lower 48 states. So that would be who? Us. Go down to the next paragraph. West Nile virus. Second line, it is a single-stranded RNA virus. 2 lines down. It is transmitted by a mosquito vector between birds and humans. We all know that, right? 3 lines down. The incidence of West Nile virus infection in the U.S. increased during the mid-90s, prompting the development of a national surveillance system in 1999. In 2002, the CDC documented 4,156 human cases of West Nile virus infection in 44 states. By 2008, the incidence of human West Nile infections had dropped with 44 deaths. In 2012, there was a resurgence of West Nile, and that's pretty much it. So West Nile virus, same with pretty much all the other ones. Mosquitoes. Not the next paragraph, but the next. Lab tests approved for the detection of West Nile include IgG and IgM ELISA, including a rapid West Nile ELISA assay and an indirect IF, immunofluorescence assay, to screen for antibodies. Turn the page. one is Zika. Zika virus is an insect vector-borne disease that is most commonly transmitted through the Aedes mosquito. So all the Flaviviridae family is transmitted by what vector? Mosquitoes. And we know about Zika. Zika is really bad, especially for the fetus, okay, because it can cross the placenta and really, really hurt the baby. The next one is Orthomyxoviridae. If you go down 4 or 5 lines, influenza A and influenza B is the most common. That's what we see. Okay, flu A and flu B. These are the viruses. Okay. And we do have an influenza C virus. Funny story about that. Not a nurses, they don't really know per se, you know. So the main ones that we test for is A and B because that's really the main ones that circulate. And so on your little kit test, it has flu A and then it has a line for it. Flu B has a little line for it, and of course it has a control line, C. So it has A, B, C, meaning flu A, flu B, and control. Well, the nurse practitioner was back there looking at the cassette, and you know it popped up, and she goes, "Oh, they have flu C." And I just looked at her, and I was like, "No, that's the control line. They don't have the flu at all." And then one of the nurses was like, "They don't have a flu C." I was like, "No, they don't." I said, "Look it up." He is. And she was like, "Oh." And I was like, "Yeah." But anyway, you know, it was funny. But, you know, they just don't know what, like, this stuff stands for. And she's like, "Oh, they have flu C." She thought she was like on to something. It was so funny. But anyway, flu A and flu B. Influenza viruses have a worldwide distribution. This is halfway down. She's alive. She's alive? Yeah. They have a worldwide distribution and originate as zoonotic infections carried by several different species of birds and mammals. The influenza season in the southern hemisphere is May to October, and in the northern hemisphere is November to April. Influenza A virus remains one of the most crucial health problems worldwide. In the pandemic of 1918 and 1919, influenza killed an estimated 20 to 50 million people. Go down to the very last sentence. A typical influenza season in the U.S. hospitalizes almost 200,000 and kills almost 36,000 people. Most immunocompetent adults, you know, they get the flu, lasts a week, and they get over it, right? But kids and immunocompromised individuals can't fight it off that easy. LK, when she was 2 or 3, the 1 year that, I think she was 2, the 1 year that I didn't give her the darn flu shot, she got the flu, and she ended up in the hospital. That morning, she woke up normal, absolutely normal, got in the bathtub. I noticed her nose was running and stuff, and I was like, "Oh, it's probably just sinuses or whatever." But by the end of the tub, I got her ready, and you could just tell she was kind of getting, like, she was just off. And then so I got her ready, and then while I was getting ready for work, she just was like laying on the floor, like face down, just. I was like, something's not right. Then she started throwing up, and I was like, okay, hold on. I called she went to the children's center at the time, called the children's center, and they're like, yeah, go ahead and bring her in. By the time I got there and they come in, y'all, she was as white as this paper and throwing up, and literally like she went limp in my arms. And I started freaking. I was like, I need some help in here. Like it scares me to death. And they come in there and put her on with like a nebulizer thing and this, that, and the other. Called EMS. Right before they did this second swab her though, and then it come back and it was flu A. But they admitted us because she like almost like quit breathing. And it scared me to death. It was bad. But she was 2. And I'm like, at the time, I was like, gosh, like, usually the flu just doesn't do this to people. But then, you start researching and stuff like that. Really, the flu is pretty bad on some people. I mean, and I've had the flu twice. I just had the flu not too long ago. I remember, I don't know, I didn't feel good one day when I left here, and then went and got tested or whatever. Yeah. And that was rough. It was not fun. But anyway, go down to not the next paragraph, but the next, where it says the key to persistence. The key to the persistence of the influenza virus is its antigenic variation. Each year, antigenic drifts are caused by RNA replication errors of the virus. Antigenic drift is a minor change in antigenic structure as mutations accumulate. Antigenic drifts occur with all 3 influenza viruses, A, B, and C. The surface antigens can sometimes change drastically, causing an antigenic shift resulting in a new H or a new N. So we've heard H1N1, H2N2. Okay, that's what it's talking about. So go down to the end of this paragraph and go up 4 or 5 lines where it says shift results. I'll see that. Shifts result in novel strains of influenza virus, so the human population is likely to have little or no historic exposure or resistance to the new strain, which greatly increases the risk of pandemics. Antigenic shift is associated only with influenza A. 3 major shifts occurred during the 20th century. Infection with influenza A virus, H1N1, which was the Spanish flu, y'all heard about that in like the history books, appeared in 1918 to 1919. H1N1 was the predominant strain until a shift of influenza A virus, H2N2, occurred in 1957 to 58. The shift resulted in the Asian flu. In 68, another shift occurred and you had influenza A H3N2, which resulted in the Hong Kong flu. The dominant strains of influenza A virus since 77 has been H1N1 and H3N2. In 1998, an outbreak of influenza A virus H5N1, which was called the avian flu, appeared in poultry in Hong Kong. So that would be like your bird flu. Okay. And we actually have the bird flu, or did, going on around here in the poultry. So they had to quit selling chickens and stuff like that. And one man in James County had to deplete his whole farm of chickens and ducks and all that because go down to, not the next paragraph, but the next, in the spring of 2009. A highly infectious novel form of influenza, the swine flu, caused by influenza A virus H1N1 emerged. It was first reported throughout Mexico and forced school closings and cancellations of sporting events. Y'all remember that? Go to the next paragraph. H1N1 was found to contain RNA from avian, human, and porcine strains of the virus. Infection spreads in the same way as typical seasonal influenza viruses, mainly through droplets from coughing and sneezing of infected individuals. Infections may be spread also by handling fomites, meaning somebody coughs on a surface and you touch the surface. H1N1. That's what we just did in the previous paragraph. Infection can be spread by handling fomites. H1N1 infection causes a wide range of flu-like symptoms: fever, cough, sore throat, body aches, headaches, chills, fatigue. In addition, many people reported nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. Not the next paragraph, but the next. Because the H and N antigens of influenza A virus continually change, the CDC and the WHO make recommendations for the composition of the trivalent influenza vaccine several months before the influenza season begins. The vaccine usually contains 2 different strains of influenza A and then a single strain of influenza B. So whenever you get a flu shot, it's not 100%, because scientists at the CDC and the WHO is who predicts what strain might be prominent that year, okay, based on studies that they've done. So it's not 100%, but at the same time, like for me, for example, I received the flu shot this year, but I got flu. However, when I got the flu, there's no telling if I had antibodies or not, because I got the flu shot when we get the flu shot. What, didn't you go with me? Who got a flu shot in there when I did? Somebody did. I didn't think. Anyway, I think it was like August, and I got the flu when? It's July now, so I got flu what, like February, maybe? So it had been August, September, October, November, December, January, February, 6 months. So my antibodies were probably tapering off by then. So I was susceptible, okay? But it's not 100%. And that's what people, another thing that people don't understand is, oh, well, I've got the flu shot and I still get flu. Well, it's not 100%, number one. And then the people say, I got the flu from the flu shot. No, you didn't. The flu shot, the vaccine, is not a live virus. So you cannot get the flu from the flu shot. You might have already been incubating with the flu or gotten the flu just right after it, but before you developed antibodies, but you did not get the flu from the vaccine. That is impossible because it is not a live virus. It's not. And what is it about viruses? What do they have to do in order to replicate? The live virus must go inside a living cell. Live virus must go inside a living cell. So if the vaccine does not contain a live virus, then it can't replicate. Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah, now the nasal is a live virus. And that's the thing too, is, you have to be careful. And they actually are kind of going away from that, going against the nasal and trying to just do the shots now. And another thing too is that, if you'll read like the limitations on like your kit test for flu, it says that if a person did get their vaccine within so many days, the nasal vaccine, and you swab their nose, it'll show up positive because you put it up their nose, swab their nose, the virus is there, you know, so it'll show up positive. So because they just don't want to get poked with it. Huh? Not anymore. They stab them suckers up now. I think the only time that they, or the only place that they do that at now is at health departments. Because at, like the children's center, you ain't getting no flu mist. You get poked. I mean, takes a second. Yeah, I've never gotten I mean, unless I got it when I was little, but in my adult years, I've always got the shot. Well, some of your vaccines are live. Your, varicella vaccine. Well, 'cause you have to, yeah. Your varicella vaccine is live. And I don't think it's MMR. It's varicella, I know. Mhm. Yeah, they're made from eggs. That's why they ask you when you go to, whenever you go to get a shot, you know, you have to fill out that little questionnaire, and you allergic to latex, or you allergic to eggs, because it contains like derivatives from that, and of course it causes okay, I was right. It is MMR. MMR and your varicella vaccines are live vaccines, but they're weakened, like weakened a lot to the point of it's just causing antibodies and not causing any disease. That's how they work. You get all that when you're little, yeah. Another, and the rotavirus in your mouth, the rotavirus vaccine, it's a live virus. Smallpox and yellow fever are also live viruses. I mean, live virus vaccines. But of course, they're not doing smallpox anymore. It's been eradicated. And yellow fever is like if you're going to another country. But MMR, which you get when you're little, and varicella, which you get when you're little, those are live vaccines, weekend vaccines, and the rotavirus, which you get when you're little. You get the rotavirus when you're like, I want to say it's 2 months to get rota. But your varicella and your MMR, I think you get it at 4. At 4 now. Either 2 or 4. I'm pretty sure it's 4. But anyway, so go to the next paragraph where it says because the H&N antigens, we're talking about the influenza vaccine. The vaccine usually contains 2 different strains of A and then a single strain of B. Influenza B virus infections, which also can occur seasonally, are usually less common than influenza A, although epidemics of influenza B virus infections can occur every few years. And whenever you get in the lab and it becomes flu season, y'all will see which one is predominant, because you're going to see it in your patient population. You're either going to have more flu A or flu B that year. And I want to say the whole time I've been a lab tech, that flu B it's been influenza A every time except like 2 times. We had a lot of flu Bs. it's not back to back. It's like influenza A, influenza A, influenza A, influenza B, influenza A, influenza A, influenza A, influenza B. Like they're never back to back. And then you have some, yes, you're gonna have some that have A and B. It's not like you can't get influenza B, you know, because you can. But it's just the predominant strain is influenza A. And you can it sucks, but I know somebody that has had this. You can get A and then turn around and get B. This girl, her whole family went through that. They got influenza A, and they went through the whole family. They got 4 kids.
So you can't have them both at the same time.
Yeah.
So you can, because they told me that lady had A, B, and then she had whooping cough.
That's so hard. Yeah.
But she never acted sick.
Oh,
She ran
I
a
doubt
fever
it.
down sick, or she did call.
If you have Bordetella pertussis and influenza A and influenza B, you won't be sick.
Yeah, no, that's what I asked them, and they was like, no, we can tell she's got alcohol. But they just put on to that.
No, you can't have A and B at the same time.
But no, I do think she did have, she was not.
Next, not the next paragraph, but the next. Well, actually, if you want to know about influenza C, it's not going to be on this test, but it is capable of causing mild upper respiratory tract illness in humans. So it is out there. Oh, that's just like pollen and stuff. That's just sinuses. I'm the same way. Next paragraph, influenza viruses are spread through aerosol inhalation. Go to the next paragraph. 5 lines down, well, actually the next paragraph. The best specimens are nasopharyngeal swabs, washes, or aspirates collected early in the course of disease. Locked swabs are reported to collect significantly more epithelial cells from the nasopharynx compared to rayon swabs. Specimens should never be frozen. A number of rapid kits are commercially available for the diagnosis of influenza in about 30 minutes. Usually kit tests, it takes about 15. And if it's positive, like, meaning they're not early in their infection, if they're like really early, it might take like a whole 15 minutes for it to pop up. But if they are in there, they're showing symptoms and truly showing symptoms and in their process, it'll pop up within like, I mean, you drop the stuff and it pops up within like 2 minutes. It's positive, so. Go to the next paragraph. Antiviral drugs is what you take, and go down 3 or 4 lines. Tamiflu. Y'all see that? It's what you take for it. So the next one, paramyxoviridae, which is para-influenza viruses. Go down 4 lines. Human PIV, which is parainfluenza 1-3, belong to the genus Paramyxovirus, and PIV2 and PIV4 belong to the genus Rubella-virus. Not the next paragraph, but the next paragraph. They are primary cause of respiratory disease in young children. PIV 1 and 2 cause the most serious illnesses in children between 2 and 4. PIV 1 is the primary cause of croup in children. PIV 3 causes bronchiolitis and pneumonia in infants and is secondary in importance to RSV. Page. Go to mumps virus. Measles, mumps, and rubella. So mumps is under the genus rubella virus. Underline that, rubella virus. That is mumps. It is an enveloped virus with H, N, and F surface antigens. The mumps virus, which has a global distribution, is spread through droplets of infected saliva. It causes an acute illness, producing unilateral or bilateral swelling of the parotid glands, although other glands, such as the testes, ovaries, and pancreas, can also be infected. The virus primarily infects children and adolescents and usually results in long-lasting immunity. The primary infection of the ductal epithelial cells in the glands results in cell death and inflammation. So when it says parotid glands, that's your glands right here in your throat, kinda. And so when you have mumps, you're gonna have like, it looks like very swollen lymph nodes or like a huge nodule will come up on your neck. What, if you have the mumps virus, what enzyme can you secrete? Amylase, yes, because amylase is in spit, right? Okay, and it's the parotid gland. Because it's infected saliva. Go to the next one, measles virus. 3 lines down, measles is rubeola. Measles is rubeola, underline that. Yeah, that's not. Yeah. And then if you'll go down to the next paragraph, it is highly contagious and spreads by aerosol. We don't see it much anymore. Why? Vaccines. Next section, respiratory syncytial virus, RSV. Everybody heard of RSV? RSV, which is a member of the pneumovirus, causes croup, bronchitis, bronchiolitis, and interstitial pneumonia. So let's start by that. Make sure you know what RSV is. It's the most common cause of severe lower respiratory tract disease among infants and young children. Almost half of all infants are infected with RSV during the first year of their life. You're welcome. And by the age of 2, almost all of them have been exposed to RSV. Because infection does not confer complete immunity, multiple infections can occur throughout life and can be severe in older adults, the immunocompromised, and those with cardiac and respiratory symptoms. Go to the next paragraph. RSV can be a significant cause of morbidity and death in older patients. 4 lines down. The virus spreads through large particle droplets in contact with fomites rather than inhalation of small aerosols. So with RSV, right out to the side, you're usually not going to do an RSV test on any kids less than 5. Greater than 5. So if they're 5 and older, you really don't need to do an RSV test on them, because in those children, at this point, is kind of just like a rough cold, okay? A rough cold. But in kids younger than that, it can be really bad, really bad. They have like a croup-like cough. Does everybody know what croup sounds like? Really bad. A croup-like cough, their nose is running. They literally RSV in babies, they cannot breathe hardly. It's bad. Really, really bad. We've had babies come in the children's center with RSV, and they literally they're like they cannot breathe. Ella Kate had Ella Kate had it when she was, I want to say 3, and she was really sick. We had to constantly do breathing treatments. She was her heart. I mean, cough and cough and cough and cough and cough. It was just it was horrible. Not really worried about that one. Go to Corna Viridae. It is one of the largest families of viruses. Go down a couple lines and you see rhinovirus. Highlight that one, rhinovirus. Does anybody know what rhinovirus is? Huh? The common cold. So make sure you write that out to the side. Rhinovirus, which is the common cold. So the Picocornaviridae is the family, but if you turn the page, the genus Enteroviruses. Enteroviruses, 73 to 120, which is hepatitis E, A, B, C, and D. Rhinoviruses, A to C. Polioviruses, and Coxsackie viruses. So we're going to talk about hepatitis viruses in a minute. Go down to the paragraph that says the polio viruses. About halfway down the page. Right before that. The polio viruses tend to infect the CNS and can cause paralysis, underlying paralysis, in a small percentage of infected individuals. We had a president at one time with polio. Franklin D. Roosevelt had polio, was in a wheelchair, just paralyzed. And when, so like apparently, it was in the movie. I don't know if that happened in real life. But in the movie in Pearl Harbor, because it showed him like in his wheelchair, whenever he gave like the state or like the address or whatever after Pearl Harbor happened, he apparently got out of his wheelchair for the movie. Got out of his wheelchair and stood up, like, because he had on like leg braces, and was addressing the nation. You know, said that we would be joining World War II, and said that it was possible for us to win because he just stood up. Yeah. But it can cause paralysis, polio. We don't see polio anymore. Why? Vaccines. Next paragraph. No vaccines are available for enteroviruses other than poliovirus. if an enterovirus includes hepatitis B.
Yeah.
Hold on. Well, if you look, hepatitis E virus. Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Hepatitis E virus B, C, those are different strains. I read it wrong. I was like, that ain't right. Okay, so only hepatitis E is an enterovirus. Okay. Anyway, the main one you need to know, that I just talked about, you don't really need to know hepatitis E. I think we're about to talk about it anyway. But polioviruses cause paralysis. No vaccines are available other than poliovirus. So then go to not the next paragraph, but the next, hand, foot, mouth. They can be caused by Coxsackie viruses and occasionally by enterovirus type 71. Hand, foot, and mouth disease is generally a disease that occurs in young children. Go to not the next, but the next. Rhinoviruses, which is the common cold, infect nasal epithelial cells and activate mediators of inflammation. Symptoms include a profuse watery discharge, nasal congestion, sneezing, headache, sore throat, cough. The common cold. Okay? Can you take antibiotics for this? No, not for the common cold. It is a virus. Antibiotics attack bacteria, not viruses. Retroviridae. So retroviridae is your HIV. And if you go down 5 lines, the human T lymphotropic viruses, HTLV 1, 2, and 5. Human T lymphotropic viruses and HIV. Go to the next paragraph. HIV belongs to the subfamily Pentavirinae. Although some groups of individuals, mostly in West Africa, are infected by HIV-2, it is the impact of HIV-1 that continues to be felt around the world. HIV causes AIDS. HIV-1 was first identified first and responsible for the AIDS pandemic. Go to the next paragraph. The virus is transmitted via blood and exchange of other body fluids. You go down, 3 lines. It is actually, HIV is not highly contagious, and normal social and non-sexual contact poses no threat to individuals. So don't think, oh my God, they have HIV, I'm not going to touch them. That's not how you get HIV, okay? High risk for contracting the virus includes unprotected sex with multiple partners, IV drug abuse, because if you're abusing drugs through IV, they share needles all the time, okay? Infusion of blood and blood products in the presence of the virus in a pregnant woman who passes it to her fetus during pregnancy. Individuals with ulcerative sexually transmitted infections, so like syphilis, genital herpes, and chancroid, are at a greater risk. So Today, all blood and blood products are screened for HIV, which substantially reduces the risk. Go down to after the bullets, not that paragraph, but the next. Once HIV enters the body, the primary target is the T helper cells, CD4. So, CD4 CD8 ratio. Normal ratio is what? 2 to 1. Person with HIV, person with full-blown AIDS. Okay, you need to know that. Go up under box 29.1. As the disease progresses, the CD4 cell count continues to decline. It started at 2, then to 1, then to 0.5. And the severity of opportunistic infections increases. Because why? You ain't got no T helper cells, right? What does T helper cells do? Fight infections. That's your immune system, right? The patient can also develop virus-induced cancers such as Kaposi sarcoma. Underline that. KS, which means Kaposi sarcoma. Turn the page. One. Next paragraph. Lab diagnosis of HIV is generally based on demonstration of anti-HIV antibodies, and then in some cases, detection of viral antigens and RNA. Inline sound. 4th generation kits. Where did I see that? 4th generation kits detect antibody and the P24 antigen. So, with that being said, did we do a HIV or did I show y'all the HIV kits over there? Okay, well, I got some and I'll show it to you. So they check for 3 things. They check for HIV-1 antibody, HIV-2 antibody, and then the P24 antigen. And which is what most kit tests check for. The antibody to 1 and 2, and then the P24 antigen. So if you go down, it even says that. Last sentence, HIV-1 antibodies, HIV-2 antibodies, and the HIV-1 P24 antigen. Go straight across from that, 4 lines down, where it says Western blot. The Western blot test detects antibodies specific to viral antigens, such as P24, P31, GP41, GP120, and 160. Okay, so first you're screening for antibodies, right? Well, what do you think you're gonna do if your screen is positive for antibodies or an antigen? What do you have to do? Because you're screening. If you're screening, you have to do a what? Confirmatory test. You have to test for confirmation. Just because it pops up that you have HIV, now more than likely you do. But they can have false positives, okay? Depending on certain things. You have to confirm it. Are you gonna tell somebody that they have HIV based on the fact of a screening test, or do you want to confirm that before you tell them? Okay. So if the confirmatory test is reactive, then the HIV test result should be considered positive and the patient is confirmed to have HIV infection. So if you do a Western blot and it detects antibodies to these, Western blot is very specific, okay? If you detect antibodies to these certain antigens, which are only antigens produced by HIV, does that make sense? Then you are considered positive, okay? So you also, I mean, we're not really gonna go over it, but you'll see it when you get to the lab. You can check like RNA, DNA, like you can dig deeper too. So, Rhabdoviridase. Rabies. Go down 4. Dogs are implicated in 99% of rabies deaths among humans because an affected dog with rabies bites a human, and there it is. Cleaning the wound and immunization within a few hours after contact can prevent the disease. Go down 7 lines. Rabies is now more closely associated with wild animals in the U.S. Why? Why now wild animals instead of like dogs? Because dogs can get vaccines. Hey! Such as raccoons, skunks, foxes, and bats. Programs to vaccinate domestic animals have reduced the number of rabies cases in dogs and cats, which in turn has decreased the risk to humans. Humans usually acquire the rabies virus when they are bitten or scratched by animals with rabies. Speaking of raccoons, so raccoons are like very known to carry rabies. At Jekyll Island, they have raccoons every freaking way. At Jekyll, yes. And so when we go, and we're actually going to go next weekend, so I'm sure I'll see some, so I can record them for you and I'll send it to y'all. But whenever what? Yes. Whenever we go crabbing at night, there are some raccoons that live over there in that marsh by where we go. And we crab with chicken, like raw chicken, like chicken legs. Listen, so we were sitting out there on our anniversary trip this past time in June. And so we're sitting there, all of a sudden, like I'd look for them because I know they're always out there, and I didn't see them. We went out there the night before, didn't see them. I'm like, well, where my buddies at? I was like, they always come up here. Well, I'm sitting there, and it's like pitch dark because we're crabbing in the dark. And so all of a sudden, I was like, I hear like didn't see nothing, and I had like my phone light, nothing, and then I heard like a little bit more, kind of getting closer, and I'm like, and so I turned my phone on, and I was like, I'm gonna record it if this thing is right here. I went like that, and he went. He was like right there at me, and I surprised him, and he surprised me. And I was like, don't you come out here and steal my chicken, you better get on. And because that's what he come to do, was steal my chicken that I was crabbing with. I'm telling you, And then of course, you know, you're not supposed to, but I was throwing them some hot chicken and stuff. Cause I felt bad, 'cause he looked hungry, he looked bad. And I told RL, cause you have some out there that look good, like, you know, but then that one, he looked bad. And I was like, we gotta get on. I said, 'cause that's a rabies one right there. I said, you can look at him and tell. I said, he got rabies. And RL said, hey, you know, I was like, look at him. I was like, he don't look good. He don't look like he feels well. But I mean, he was like skinny and like his fur was like kind of, I don't know. And half of them out there, they're usually like pretty fat and like look good, but this one did not. And I was like, we gotta go. He got rabies. He's got rabies. Y'all have pet raccoons? He used to. Wow, they ran away. So did they live outside and you just caught them your pets, or like you raised them? Oh.
Well, one of my daddy's friends found them as babies and he couldn't keep them, so I was like, I want them. So what I do is like, but they have to stay outside, obviously. So I was like, well, they'll probably run away. I just figured they'd run away, but they didn't. They stayed until they were grown and then they.
You raised them up to go
Out in the wilderness.
go out in the wilderness on their own. Mama Cassie. But anyway, you get rabies when bitten and scratched by an animal with rabies. Go to the next paragraph. Lab diagnosis of rabies involves determining whether an animal that has bitten a human has rabies. And so, because you don't know if they have rabies, well, certainly, you're automatically, if you get bitten or scratched by a wild animal, probably you need to go get a rabies shot, okay? So, because it says if you get an immunization and clean the wound, it can prevent you from getting rabies. Once you get rabies, that's it. You probably gonna die, okay? So once you get rabies, that's it. But they need to know if the animal has rabies. The animal is killed, its head is removed and sent to a reference lab. And what are those things that they're looking for? Y'all remember? It starts with an N. No, they're located in the neurons of the brain. Negri bodies.
Yeah.
Make sure you write that out to the side. That's what they're looking for. Negri, Negri bodies. RI and bodies. You sent pictures of what? Your raccoon?
My raccoon. I'm just right. Dude, that one's funny.
The people that aren't here are probably like, why the heck is she posting pictures of raccoons?
They really are sweet animals, though. The ones I have usually, I have one.
Well, probably when you raise them, like, or if you have some, those are cute. If you have some that are, you know, around humans a lot, but if you get some that like aren't used to humans, they're like that one, for example, and that's another reason I said he had rabies, because he was like, and I was like, you ain't giving me rabies. Like, go get it. And he was like, gosh, I'm gonna have to record them for y'all because we're going down there next weekend. My can you remote that? Yeah, you can be on any beach in Georgia, I think, in mine. Oh. Yeah. Huh? Oh, well, that's like the private part, right? We've been down there at night fishing. Oh, park down there. Well, can walk.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can walk around there. But no, now that might be like a thing is that you might can't like park in a public area and go down on the beach. I don't know, but if you go, yeah, you can always go down there. And that, it's not like people patrol the beach or, you know, I've never, I mean, I'm sure people do patrol the beach, but I'm saying like at night, there's not like any lifeguard or anything. So you're kind of out there like on free will. But the area that we go to on Jekyll, is the fishing, well, it's right by the pier. And it's a pier and it's like a little, it's, walking down the beach, probably 2 miles from Driftwood Beach. Yeah, so it just, and we walked it one night. We just left our crab baskets and stuff like in the water. And we walked all the way down there. And it's probably a 2 mile walk, on the beach to Driftwood Beach. And we were walking, it was when that ship overturned, that Golden Ray, and they were working on it at night. And, we went down there to like watch them work on it, stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. But it's about a 2 mile walk to Driftwood Beach from the pier and where we fish at. But out there, like in that area, so you have the pier over here and then the sand, like, and then kind of over here is the beach part. And, during the day, people get out there like on the beach. Now I ain't gotta get out of here. And that's for sure. It's not like that. But anyway, but that's because that's what they do fishing. Like, hello. But at night, people are throwing cast nets and stuff like that, like trying to catch like fish for bait and stuff. It's cool. That's where we always like to go.
Do crabs come out when it's cold?
Yes.
Like so in January, they would get out at least.
I don't know about like owl,
You can crab.
but
What
we,
about when you walk on the beach? That's always so fun to me.
like the ghost crabs you eat. I don't know. I know the ghost crabs come out like during the summer because whenever we went walking last time, they were like everywhere, and I actually have videos of them because you know, like you see them or whatever, and then they're like,
Yeah.
you know, that's how it reminds me of Instant Hammer.
Yeah.
And,
No.
yeah. I have videos of them, but that was during the summer. But like as far as crabbing, like blue crab, it's really nice. But it's so much fun. I didn't think I would like it. I thought it would be like boring, but we had like the best time. But anyway, turn the page. So go to the next paragraph. Rabies cannot be successfully treated once symptoms appear. Cannot. Okay. However, post-exposure prophylaxis is 100% effective in preventing the disease if the bite victim is treated immediately after exposure. Post-exposure prophylaxis includes vigorously cleaning the wound sites, providing human rabies immunoglobulin, and administering a 3-injection series of the rabies vaccine. Tocoviridae, 3 lines down. Alpha virus, that's the genus. They are mosquito-borne and cause encephalitis. Eastern equine encephalitis, a mosquito-borne disease. It causes disease in horses, equine, and in humans. It occurs primarily in the eastern half of the U.S., so that's this way. one not too long ago in Savannah, I want to say. About 250 human cases have been reported since 1964, and these infections have a mortality rate of about 40%. Infections can range from mild flu-like symptoms to encephalitis. Go down a little bit. Birds are natural reservoirs of the virus, which is spread to humans and horses via bites of mosquitoes. Horses and humans are the dead end hosts. Eastern equine encephalitis in horses can be a predictor of human Eastern equine encephalitis. Then you have Western equine encephalitis. It is also a disease in humans and horses. Go to not the next one, but the next. Rubella virus. It is an enveloped virus belonging to the genus Rubivirus. It causes the disease rubella or the German measles. Underline that. Rubella is also known as German measles. So you have regular measles, okay, rubeola, mumps, and then rubella, which is the German measles. That's what's in your vaccine. It is a mild febrile illness accompanied by an erythematosus, maculopapular discrete rash with post-auricular and suboccipital lymphadenopathy. Not the next paragraph, but the next. Rubella would be of little concern if it did not cross the placenta and spread to fetal tissues, which can result in congenital rubella syndrome. This syndrome can cause effects ranging from birth of a normal infant to birth of a severely impaired infant, fetal death, or spontaneous abortion. Because the rubella virus halts or slows cell growth, the impact on the embryo is worse when the infection develops in the earliest stages of pregnancy. So hepatitis viruses. So hepatitis B, well, I'm not going over all of these because we've already talked about hepatitis viruses. So anyway, well, go to hepatitis A virus and go to the second paragraph. Hepatitis A virus is almost always transmitted via fecal oral routes and is usually acquired through close personal contact or contaminated food. Hepatitis B virus, third paragraph. It is primarily a bloodborne pathogen. So if you go down to 5 lines down, the main modes of transmission are sexual, perinatal, and parental routes. In the United States, heterosexual and male homosexual contacts are the most common routes of transmission. High-risk groups include IV drug users. MSM is male who has sex with other males. Individuals from endemic areas, persons with household or sexual contacts with HPV carriers, healthcare personnel, people with tattoos or body piercing, and infants born to HPV positive mothers. Turn the page to hepatitis D. Go to the second paragraph, 3 lines down. The infection can occur in 1 to 2 clinical forms, a infection, the patient is infected with Hep B and Hep D. In superinfection, HDV infection develops in a patient with chronic Hep B infection. So in other words, in order to get hepatitis D, you have to have or have had hepatitis B. Hepatitis C virus, 3 lines down. Mainly blood transfusions. Go to the next paragraph. Eight lines down. IV, or 9 lines down, IV drug abusers. There's a bloodborne pathogen. Go to hepatitis E. Second line, it is transmitted via the fecal oral route, primarily through contaminated drinking water. Well, in third world countries, you don't have like a water monitoring program, and they like get out the river and stuff. So much basically. So go to prions. Y'all remember what prions are? Okay. What are prions? What disease is it found with? Huh? What? Mad cow, Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. Yep. Prions are not viruses. They are proteinaceous infectious particles. Make sure you know that. They are proteinaceous infectious particles. They cause a group of disease in mammals called transmissible spongiform encephalopathy. The name prion, which comes from the word protein and infection, examples of TSEs include Peru, never heard of that, and Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease in humans, Scrapie in sheep, bovine spongiform encephalopathy in cattle, and chronic wasting disease in deer and elk. 15. BSE is also referred to as mad cow disease and was responsible for the loss of hundreds and thousands of cattle in the United Kingdom, most notably during the 1980s. That is why whenever you get screened for blood transfusions, they ask if you had been to England in the 80s, blah, 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 because mad cow disease can transmit through blood transfusions. So that's why they have to ask all the questions. That's this chapter. Very long, but we outlined it. Okay. So yes, yes. 26 is about Mycobacterium. which mycobacterium causes TB? Mycobacterium tuberculosis, and which mycobacterium causes Hansen disease? Lepre causes Hansen disease or leprosy. What's significant about mycobacteria? They are what growing? Slow growing. So you hold them for, and it can take, okay. Which one of the mycobacterias fail to grow in vitro? Lepre. Which mycobacterium is a buff-colored colony? Tuberculosis. How do you spread TB? Airborne. What is a PPD? Purified protein derivative. It's made from what? The cell wall of what? In tuberculosis. And what's it for? See if you have been exposed to TB. Yes. So with Mycobacterium tuberculosis, we said that it is buff colored. What type of formation may you see? Cord formation, meaning it looks like it formed a cord. As far as the biochemical test, it's positive for what? What? Niacin? Reduction of nitrate to nitrite, and catalase positive, yes. What are some of the symptoms of TB? Fatigue, fever, night sweats, coughing, okay. What is, when we're working with TB, what's like the most probably, like the most important form of equipment in the lab? The hood, because you have to work under the hood. How should your lab be laid out? It should be separate from the rest of the lab. It should have what? Negative air pressure, and what else? What? What about the vents in it? Well, yeah, meaning non-circulating vents, meaning they do not circulate to other parts of anywhere else, okay? They have HEPA filters, meaning they circulate out of themselves. Okay, it goes in one and goes through a HEPA filter and comes back through. For disinfectant or disinfecting TB, how long is the contact time? Okay. Why do you perform digestion and decontamination of mycobacteria specimens? So to liquefy the sample and to allow people. Okay, what does that mean? It kills other bacteria because other bacteria is fast growing, and TB takes 2 to 6 weeks to grow, right? So obviously we contaminate it by, allowing that decontaminating agent to kill the other bacteria while allowing the mycobacteria to grow. Okay. When treating tuberculosis, what two antibiotics do you use? Okay, isoniazid and rifampin. What happens when you have multi-drug resistant mycobacterial tuberculosis? Huh?
Are you asking about how you get it?
Yeah, like what causes it?
The doctor goes to the that you only one of the two. Or they don't get the drug. They don't get the correct amount.
Okay, so if they don't get, the correct amount of antibiotics, so at least 2 or more, right? Or if the patient stops it. And to be considered multi-drug resistant, they have to be resistant to what 2 antibiotics? Okay. All right. What are some media for the recovery of mycobacteria? What? Losine, Jensen, and Middlebrook. Yes. When should you get a TB test? The skin test? Every what? Every year. Or if you have been exposed to TB, right? What kind of stain is done for the recovery of mycobacteria? Which is a what stain? Acid-fast stain, or AFB. You have the Ziehl-Neelsen and the Kenyon. The Ziehl-Neelsen is the what stain? Hot stain with heat. And then Kenyon is the cold stain. Which is the fluorescent stain, the fluorochrome stain? Aramine. You view it under what OL immersion?
100.
How many fields? 300. Okay. Good job. I got this. So Mycobacterium produces photoreactivity. What are photochromogens?
Produce pigment in light.
Produce pigment in the light. What are photochromogens?
No pigment.
No.
Light and dark. Pigment, light and dark.
Pigment and light and dark is photochromogens. Now, what are non-chromogenic or non-photochromogenic? No pigment at all. So that would be the tan buff color, which is indicative of what bacteria? TB. Okay. That's pretty much this chapter. Good deal. So fungi, what's the difference between a mold and a yeast? Molds are fuzzy and woolly, and yeast are what? They are bacteria-like, meaning they are creamy, yeah. Name, three cutaneous mycoses, meaning diseases caused by fungi.
Triple cyclone.
Uh-huh.
Spore, epidermolysis.
Yes. Which yeast or mycosis is said to have a spaghetti and meatball appearance?
That one for her.
For her.
Imperfect.
Imperfect. Oops, with the fur. Okay. How would you view skin scrapings or nail clippings under a microscope? What type of fluid? KOH. Yep. What's another fluid you can use? Yeah, fluoride.
Yeah, like cauliflower.
Yeah.
That's what it reminds me of, that word, cauliflower.
Okay. That's chloroform.
Okay.
What is an infection of the nails called? Mm-hmm. Onychomycosis. Onychomycosis. What is athlete's foot? Cutaneous pedis. Microsporum canis. They are what? Spindle shaped. You should know what it looks like. They look like a spindle. They look like a cocoon. Which bacteria is considered rose handler's disease? Orthrix shinki. Think of Velma. But it's shinki. I got hooked with a thorn. Orthrix shinki. What does the yeast phase look like? Cigar shaped. What about the mold phase? Rosettes. Which bacteria, which yeast is caused by contamination of bird and bat guano? Histoplasma capsulatum, or bat poop. So it's also known as what? Cave disease, because bats are in caves, right? What's the most virulent of the mycotic agents? Let's start with Coccidioides. So yeah. Which yeast which yeast um, remains a really high cause of mortality. Aspergillus. In which people? Immunocompromised. With their immunocompromised, what's their white count look like? So they can't what? Aspergillus, it looks like a what on a stain? Flower. What are the little things that you pick up, the white things when you blow? Is it dandelions? That's what it kind of looks like to me.
Y'all see that TikTok?
What
Where that girl picks up a dandelion. Oh my gosh, I gotta show y'all. He's like, it's a beautiful dandelion, and then bites it. It's so funny.
Why would you buy a
I
dandelion?
don't know, but it's the
Ew.
funniest thing ever. Did you see it? He's so sad about icing. Yeah. Oh, it's all. That's why you had that filter. Love it.
Which is thought to be a cause of chronic fungal sinusitis? Besides Tennessee, Alternaria. That's, they're primarily implicated in chronic fungal sinusitis. The next page. Which yeast is like the most abundant yeast? Candida species. Which candida is germ tube positive? Which means what? Not constricted at the base. Which candida is germ tube negative? Tropicalis, which means what? It is constricted at the base. Tell me about Cryptococcus. Use India ink or Negrosin. What else? Pigeon dropping. What does it look like as far as when you use India ink? Halo around the yeast. Yes. Found in what body fluid? CSF. Which is the primary opportunistic infection in people with AIDS?
I thought it was that J word, yeah.
Pneumocystis gyrovector.
I didn't put cystitis because there's not another T.
Well, it might be. I've always pronounced it pneumocystis.
Yeah, got our mission.
Um. What is a stain for molds? We talked about
Let's start with
L,
LPC.
which is what? Lactophenol cotton blue. Yes.
I was laying off the first.
Well, it's on that table. And then if you look at the description of the table, it says LPCB lactophenol. Oh, yeah. What is the auger? Savarod dextrose auger. How do you incubate these?
Very and
Ambient. Ambient air and in CO2. Yes, so room temp and CO2. You look at them, what?
So 4 to 6 weeks.
No, you hold them for 4 to 6 weeks. You look at them twice a week. How do you look at them? Closed. So you look at the front and the back. Front and the back. Without opening. India ink or the Negrosin, okay? So we've kind of gotten out of that. So what do you do to like identify cryptography? Get this. Okay, that's pretty much that chapter. Now the chapter we just went over. What are the steps of viral replication? Step 1.
Or it needs attached to it, right?
Okay, well, oh yeah, let's back up. So in order to replicate, it needs to what?
Be inside a living cell.
Be inside a living cell. So the process of replication, step 1.
They must absorb or attach to the cell surface.
Attaches, step 2.
Penetrate.
No, penetrate. Step 2 is to penetrate it, meaning it attaches to it, it goes inside it. And then step 3, it replicates, starts its replication process. And then step 4, which is everything, cell lysis. Okay? You need to know those steps. Attachment, penetration, replication, cell lysis. Do what?
With the filtration in there, you need to know that the DNA or the RNA.
No. When is the best time to collect a specimen if you think a person has a viral disease?
Less than 3 days.
Yeah, that's right. Within the first 3 days. Okay. The transport media, what does it consist of?
Human. Zero.
Before that,
Oh, the isotonic solution.
the buffered isotonic solution, mainly with saline. That is the transport media. Buffered isotonic solution with saline. 685. Yep. Okay, so after the 3 days, next paragraph. Viral transport medium, saline or tryptase soy broth can be added to sterile containers. Several viral transport systems are commercially available. Most consist of buffered isotonic solution. Mainly with saline. What microscope can you view viruses on? Electron microscope. For viral isolation, what are the 3 methods used? Cell culture, animal inoculation, embryonated eggs. Well, it just kind of helps you understand. We went over it in the reading, so yeah. Which virus causes fever blisters? HSV usually 1. What about genital warts? 2. What virus causes deafness in babies? Cytomegalovirus. Which virus causes mono? Epstein-Barr. It can also cause what other viruses? Burkitt's lymphoma, Hodgkin's, and nasopharyngeal carcinoma. What's significant about Burkitt's lymphoma? Mainly seen in African children. Huh?
I remember that, 'cause I'm pretty sure it was on the test when I got it. Was that already on the test?
It was on the test, it was a serology test. What causes,
Someone put 80 ads in, I think. One of them I put Asian, and another one I put something else.
what causes chickenpox?
Varicella.
Chickenpox?
Varicella.
Varicella. What causes shingles? Zoster. And so people get varicella, and then what happens? It does what? Well, yeah. So it lies dormant in the body and then can be reactivated as zoster. Okay. What does human papillomavirus cause? warts, okay?
That causes
Um, warts, whether it be warts on your fingers and toes and legs, or genital warts. Now, what type of cancer is HPV associated with? Cervical cancer due to which type of warts? Genital warts. Okay. What is the variola virus? Smallpox. We don't have smallpox anymore. Why? We had a vaccine that got rid of it. Huh? Well, it got rid of it, but we have two samples in the world. CDC, and we have one, and then I've always wanted to learn how to speak Russian. Only because
No, in Russian it's it.
no, I knew that. I know that.
The only reason I know that is because I have gymnastics coaches from Russia and they told me no.
And also, nine. Oh, that's German shit. Something like that. But that's how they say it. Nine. What is the most common cause of viral gastroenteritis in children and infants? Rotavirus. Yes. Rotavirus. Which virus, is indicative of having outbreaks? It is gastroenteritis also in schools, colleges, nursing homes, cruise ships. The virus. Norovirus. What is known as hemorrhagic fever? Ebola and Marburg. Eastern equine encephalitis, Western equine encephalitis, West Nile virus, and Zika, they are transmitted by mosquitoes. It causes the flu, or the main flu. No, like which influenza A is the most common, yes. What's rubella or rubella virus? No, mumps. Rubella virus is mumps. And what's significant about mumps? You have which enzyme will be elevated? Amylase. What is a childhood respiratory virus? Mainly in children, especially like under 5. RSV. What's rhinovirus? Common cold. Which virus can cause paralysis? Polio. Which virus causes measles? Rubiola causes measles. Which is considered the German measles? Rubella. Know the difference between them two. Rubiola, measles. Rubella, German measles. And then Rubella virus is mumps. So those sound the same. Make sure you know the difference in those three. Okay. So measles is rubiola. Rubella is German measles. And rubella virus is mumps. What, give me an example of a retroviride virus. HIV. Yep. What does HIV cause? AIDS. What, is a sarcoma that HIV can cause? Kaposi sarcoma. Kaposi. Or that's how I learned it. Give me an example of a bloodborne pathogen. There's two of them mainly. Hepatitis virus. Which ones? B and B and C. But you don't get it from a bloodborne source. Yes. B and C. A is fecal oral and E is fecal oral. B and C are bloodborne. What is a prion?
Not a virus.
Proteinaceous infectious particle. What diseases do prions cause? Mad cow, Creutzfeldt Jakob, Kuru. That's this test.
That's not as bad. I'm scared.
It isn't. This test is not bad because we've heard a lot of these before. And a lot of this test is matching. Matching and multiple choice.
Is there any fill in the blank?
The bonus.
The bonus? No.
Well, it's not fill in the blank. I mean, you have to tell me the answer. So it is fill in the blank. Yeah, you have to write out the answer.
The 45 multiple choice, 46 is 76 matching, and then a one.
So this is not bad at all to me. And then you have pictures, but your pictures are matching. And I pretty much told you which ones to. Okay, so that's that.